And here's some examples, of course, of the beautiful granulation in the Schiller exhibition. Date of the first drawn wire is open to debate. The technique was not used in Europe until around 700 AD, and then it really didn't become widespread until the Middle Ages. We have here evidence that the draw plate was used in the Schiller kingdom. So did it first start in Schiller and then move westward? I think it's a very interesting question.
Welcome, I'm Denise Leidy. I'm one of the curators in the Department of Asian Art, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to Schiller, Korea's Golden Kingdom.
이곳은 미국 뉴욕에 위치한 한 박물관. 오늘은 한국의 신라 시대 금 장신구에 대해 이야기합니다.
Thank you very much.
그리고 오늘 강의를 진행할 전문가 도나가 등장하는데요.
And I'm going to talk a little bit about what is gold, where does it come from, and how is it worked. And then we'll look at a few techniques.
먼저 금에 대해 설명합니다.
We'll never know when the first gold was discovered. It's too soft a material to be used for tools or weapons like stone or copper, but it's ideally suited to be used for display, and it also has a ability to withstand any corrosion, so it always stays bright and shiny. Therefore, it makes it a fine symbol for wealth and is found in elite burials very early on. So, what is gold? It is the most noble metal, which means that it is resistant to oxidation and corrosion, and it has some very unique properties. The color, of course, bright and beautiful and shiny. It's very, very dense, extremely heavy. It's very malleable, easy to work and form. It has good electrical conductivity and also good thermal conductivity. There are two main types of gold. There's alluvial gold, or also known as placer deposits, and vein gold, or lode gold. They're both closely related to quartz. Alluvial gold is found with the detritus of gravel and sands from the disintegration of gold-rich rocks. They are made from metallic ores that have, because it's metallic ore, it's very resistant to any kind of weathering, so that temperature changes and expansion and contraction of freezing water or wind and, again, water erosion can wash away the rocks, but they really don't harm the gold. Instead, what happens is the minerals around the gold, as you can see down the bottom two slides, the gold veins, the minerals around them wash away and free the gold, which then is also washed as well. Always associated with quartz, as you see here, and it's also found up in the mountains, but it has to be mined. And you can see the sort of irregular masses inside both of these rocks. So in order to collect the gold, it's usually done by panning. People gather sand and gravel along with water in shallow basins and wash out the rocky matter, sort of floats off, and the heavier gold collects at the bottom of the pan, as you can see here. And this has been done since ancient times and is even done today.
금을 채굴하는 방법으로 크게 두 가지를 설명한 도나. 그러더니 한 가지 의문을 제기하는데요.
So keep in mind that none of this mining can be done without water. So if you don't have any water near, then you're not going to have any mines. But then the question comes up, where does the gold from Silla come from? We don't know. There are no ancient mines have been located at this point, and it's very possible that they've been mined out, as so many other places in the world. Now that we've extracted the gold, what do we have? These Schiller earrings were analyzed and contain about 80% gold, 19% silver, and less than 0.5% copper. They were probably made from alluvial gold.
신라의 엄청난 금장신구에 많은 전문가들이 궁금증을 갖고 있는 듯한데요. 이번엔 신라의 금 세공법에 대해 알아보기로 합니다.
So once you've collected your gold, the next thing you need to do is to combine it into larger pieces. And that's done by melting and forming it into an ingot, or you could cast it into a finished object at that point. And once you have your ingot, you can start hammering it. It's large enough to start hammering to form something. And here's some examples in the Schiller exhibition of hammered objects. Although, aside from hammering, the crown on the right, you can see that they used chisels to actually do all the elaborate cutout in the gold. And hammering is actually the most consuming technique of all the techniques I'm going to show you today. And here are the Schiller earrings, and you can see the beaded wire, which is running along this leaf shape right here. I'm not quite sure whether this was done in a swage block or whether they could have used a chisel and hammer also on a flat piece of wire. These techniques were used throughout the ancient world, and here's a painting of a medieval workshop. And you can see they're using the same exact tools. You've got the stake, the hammers, and here's the bitumen, which he's doing some engraving on a piece of metal. And I have to say that the Egyptian, Greek, and Etruscans really have done the most fantastic gold work.
다른 나라에서도 금 세공이 있었다며 유물들을 보여주는데요. 신라에선 이러한 기술뿐만 아니라 독특한 점이 발견되었습니다.
And when you look at the gold earring on the right, you can see here that we also have these straight lines, so that they were drawing wire in Schiller. And this is another example, another Schiller earring, a scanning electron microscope photograph of it, and that too is drawn wire. Now, the date of the first drawn wire is open to debate. The technique was not used in Europe until around 700 AD, and then it really didn't become widespread until the Middle Ages. We have here evidence that the draw plate was used in the Schiller kingdom. So, did it first start in Schiller and then move westward? I think it's a very interesting question. And here's some examples, of course, of the beautiful granulation in the Schiller exhibition.
한눈에 봐도 신라의 엄청난 금 세공 기술이 느껴지는데요.
Now, casting into a mold is another method of manufacturing that can be used for gold objects. However, it's rather wasteful of metal, as much more is needed than you actually end up in the finished object, because you have to allow for shrinkage of the metal, and also there are other losses. And I should mention that the halo behind him is actually sheet gold that's been hammered and then chisel cut. Now, gilding was a method of applying a very thin layer of gold to the surface of an object, and it's a very economical method of producing an attractive gold finish. So what might look like solid gold is actually a bronze or copper or silver and covered with just a thin layer of gold. The earliest method of gilding metal was by mechanically attaching gold foils along grooves on the object. Or you could take a thicker gold sheet and wrap it around the object and again press it down because the gold was so soft. But after a while, when they had learned to refine gold to very high purity, they were able to hammer it into extremely thin sheets, really into what we call gold leaf today. And then you can use an adhesive or a resin to apply the gold leaf onto the surface of your metal or wooden objects or whatever. So the earliest methods, the other method would be mercury gilding, which is when you add mercury and gold together, it forms a liquid amalgam. And this can be applied to the silver or gold object, and then when it's heated, driving off the mercury, it leaves behind a gold layer, which then needs to be polished and burnished. And again, leaving a nice, beautiful gold surface. I believe that these are cast copper alloy with probably an amalgam gilding on the surface of them. But they're quite fascinating. And so we know that technique had also come into Schiller. So far, we've seen all these incredible objects. I thought I would end with this just because it's such a good example, a good combination of all the techniques. We've got hammered sheet, we've got drawn wire, we've got chain work.
오늘은 미국 뉴욕에 위치한 한 박물관에서 진행한 신라의 금 세공법에 대한 강연을 보았습니다. 신라 시대는 한국의 문화가 엄청나게 발달했던 시기로 많이 알려져 있으며 또 그 유물들도 한 번쯤은 접해보셨을 겁니다. 하지만 금이 무엇인지 어떻게 캐내야 하는지부터 설명을 들으니 더욱 한국의 문화재들이 자랑스럽고 소중하게 느껴지기도 했습니다. 그리고 또 설명하는 중간마다 아직도 풀리지 않는 의문이라며 엄청나게 앞서 있었던 한국의 금 세공 문화에 놀라는 모습을 볼 수 있었는데요. 그냥 한국인 대대로 이어진 손재주에서 그칠 것이 아니라 금에 대해 자세히 알고 또 그 기술에 대해 한번 생각해보며 우리의 문화재를 더욱 소중히 여기는 마음을 가져보는 건 어떨까요? 오늘 강의는 여기까지입니다. 시청해주셔서 정말 감사합니다.